Okay, it's still TMI Thursday. Well, don't be surprised to see me here. Things just happened. The most important thing, I'm here right now to drive you all through the way to termination point on the show this beautiful Thursday morning. Of course, the politics of the country is getting more interesting with the recent defection of some senators and members of the House of Representatives from the ruling party to the opposition party and other political parties. Some governors have also followed suit. I mean, we're just saying a play out of what happened in 2014, which heralded the 2015 general election. And well, some have been doing all kinds of analysis. We'll just wait and see how all of that pans out in terms of affecting the ordinary man on the street. That's the most important thing. For some analysts, this defection is consistent with our political structure, political development, political aspirations. But is there an underlying factor why this is so? Are there factors, are there circumstances that have fast-tracked this whole process, that have instigated this whole process? We'll be talking along those lines on the show today. The constitutionality or otherwise of an executive order will also attract our attention. We'll be expecting some lawyers and a host of other gentlemen to join in the conversation. We'll be doing a bit of entertainment talk with an up-and-coming artist. All these and lots more you should expect on the show TMI Thursday. My name is Sonny Duke Okosun. Well, we'll take another short break in some few minutes. We'll bring you the AM news. Stay with us on the show. Don't go anywhere. Have you noticed that the rain just keep pouring and pouring and pouring day in, day out? That's why it's called the rainy season. Of course, in Nigeria, two major seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. So if you're leaving the house this morning, prepare yourself. I mean, you could leave your house, it's all clear and dry. And just before you drive some 30 minutes or less, and then the clouds gather and they start pouring down heavily. And it's possible before you do some few meters drive again, it's all clear and dry. Well, that's the reason why it's called the rainy season, because this is the season of rain. So get yourself prepared, your umbrellas, your cardigans, and of course your raincoats, your boots, whatever it is that can protect you from being drenched or wet, prevent you from catching cold, especially for children. Parents need to watch out for that. I mean, kids would just like to sometimes take off their clothes and play and do all kinds of things, but somewhere along the line, there's always a day of reckoning, because all of those things they do may eventually affect them without them knowing. But you've got to watch out for them. And there are some ailments that are very, very synonymous with the rainy season. I mean, you're talking about flu, you're talking about pneumonia, stuff like that. We've got to protect our children to prevent them catching or getting some of these infections. And the way to do it is to wear them clothes as often as possible. I have with me in the studio the erudite barrister of Vensei Otame. Barrister Otame, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sonny, and good day viewers at home.
The political environment is getting more interesting by the day.
Quite interesting.
And my greatest concern, really, which has been some of the concerns expressed by a lot of people, is that when we go in this direction, what becomes of the plight of the ordinary man on the street? Because it looks like at this level, governance is temporarily suspended as against all of the activism, activities in the political space.
Well, very well. This is election period. Usually in Nigeria, when it is like a year to election, you have such political intrigues, horse trading, movement of politicians from one party to the other. I was telling somebody the other day that I really cannot identify a politician with a particular political party, because every 4 years an average Nigerian politician will change his party just like a woman is changing her wrapper. So it is quite usual in the Nigerian politics. Nigerian politicians are not really politically and ideologically based. They do not believe in the ideals of a party. They do not believe in the ideological theory of any particular political party. What they ultimately believe in is their own personal interest, not even the interest of the nation. That is the truth of the matter. What has played out in recent time, is an indication of the fact that the Nigerian politicians are still not prepared to learn because they cannot really stick to their words. Unfortunately, quite unfortunately, I dare to say that most of the politicians moving from one party to the other actually rode on the back of the two presidential candidates that were presented by the dominant political parties, the APC and the PDP. I am sure that there is no senator, there is no member of the House of Reps in the National Assembly that can beat his chest to say that I got there based on my ability to campaign and based on my own pedigree. Now, you will recall that the presidential election was conducted alongside with the elections of the National Assembly. And so the areas that President Muhammadu Buhari predominantly won, you also had a situation where all the senators and members of the House of Reps that contested along with him in that political party went with him and won. Very many of them were not even popular. They were not designed to win. And the same applies to the PDP. The areas then President Goodluck Jonathan won, also had members from his own political party from the South-South, from the Southeast, part of the Southwest and the Middle Belt region, also winning along with him. Okay, so in such a scenario, somebody said the other time, I think that statement was credited to the APC national chairman, that most of the politicians do not really have electoral value. As provocative as that comment could be, with all due respect to the politicians changing parties from one political party to the other, it is the truth of the matter. Because what they are doing now is to satisfy their political expediency. There is now a permutation, just as the experts can forecast the weather, they themselves can also forecast the political climate.
But some have said these actions now didn't just happen overnight. They are predicated on a wide range of factors, chiefly being that government has not been able to live up to the expectations of the average Nigerians in so many ways. It may not be in all ways, but in so many ways. You're talking about the state of the economy. You're talking about the security. But in any case, you said a while ago that some of these politicians don't have political value.
Very well.
But at the National Assembly, there's a recommendation that, look, let the National Assembly elections come first. Let us order, or let's reorder the sequence of elections in 2019. If we say these guys don't have political value, let's reorder the sequence of election and see how it pans out ultimately.
Now, let me tell you this. That will be the excuse they will give. Well, things are not moving on well. It is there is so much expectation from the people. The government is not meeting up to these expectations, and so on and so forth. But you know just as much as I know that the infighting actually started from day one, the day the National Assembly was inaugurated. And so it dovetailed into what we have currently. And the politicians have also penned the political equations, and they have seen areas where a particular presidential candidate that is likely to emerge in one party is going to have a stronghold, And as such, they will have to go along with that presidential candidate. You know.
So what are those factors that seems to favor the supposedly presidential candidate's emergence and any need to now flow along with this presidential as against this other one?
Yes, if for example, we have you know, the stakeholders, people bidding for such presidential tickets, maybe in the other party, and they discover that considering the states they are coming from, their own geographical zone, it will be more politically expedient for them to go along with such a presidential candidate. That is a very good permutation. Now back to your earlier question.
Yes.
Of they want the reordering of the elections. What is the bill being enacted by the National Assembly for the reordering of the election? They want their own election to come first, different from the presidential election.
At least to prove that they have political value, and then they are not riding on anybody's back.
If they feel they have political value,
yes,
they will not be so dogged to the extent that their own election should come first. Let them leave the position. To my own mind, let them leave.
But Mr. Tamere,
yes.
I'm asking this question because you
yes.
said that a party chairman recently said those who are defecting don't have political value. And you also corroborated that by saying that these people don't have political value. They literally rode on the backs of the two popular presidential candidates, as it then was.
Yes.
The APC candidate and of course the
PDP candidates.
Okay, now the guys are saying, look, fine, no problem. We don't have political value in our respective constituencies. We are not popular. Let's reorder the election. Let our elections come first. Then you have your election first, so that we show who is really popular, who is on the ground. I think that makes more sense.
They shouldn't have insisted at the same time that their election should come first. Let me tell you. Let's go down the memory lane. 1999, before the emergence of our democratic process,
yes,
the electoral guidelines laid down, you know, were to the effect that the local government elections would take place first, then the House of Assembly and governorship election, and then the presidential and national, the National Assembly election and presidential election would
come up last.
Moving from the lower level to the higher level, which is normal and, you know, in line with every democratic process. But because there was a political interest, we have the reordering of election, where the presidential election will come up first before these other elections. To my mind, that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
But having also created that environment and having also, you know, made the law that should be the position of conducting election, why taking Nigerians backward again to say, okay, let us now create another kind of timetable? We are not, you see, Mr. Duke,
yes,
to me, Nigerians are not fools to be tossed here and there, you know. So you cannot be making a law with the intention of actually promoting your own interest.
So do you subscribe,
that is what I am
subscribe to the fact that the statement that these guys don't have political value was unnecessary, unnecessarily provocative? Do you subscribe to that?
I agree with you that that particular comment was quite unnecessary, and it was quite provoking. You know, even though it could be a statement of fact, but at the heat of the moment, considering the fact that there is every need for the party to ensure that, well, they appeal to people not to move from their own party to the other. Then such a comment wasn't really necessary at that point in time. Okay, that is my
let's just look at a few specific cases in this wave of defections that we've seen in recent times from the National Assembly to the House of Representatives to Benue State and a couple of other places. And some are speculating that there are still many more defections to come in the build-up to the 2019 election. Let's begin with Benue State. Governor Autumn at some point said he was issued the red card. And then while that was trending, there was a meeting where it was alleged that, well, the man has changed his mind, we have discussed, and he's ready to stay put. And a few days later, he comes out in the open to give a press conference to announce his movement. And would you say such a man has no political value?
No, not at all. Well, that of Governor Autumn,
yes.
One could empathize with him because, before now, he was not quite pleased with the way he wasn't given the necessary protection by the Nigerian police force, considering the bloodletting, due to the level of insecurity in Benue State.
Okay.
And so there was a kind of dissatisfaction from his people over the security arrangement. And he kept wailing that, well, he is not quite comfortable with the way he is being treated by the police formation in solving the problem. And why that was on, it beat my imagination to also hear that one person, just one individual, who categorized himself as a leader of the party, would say, I have issued a city governor a red card. Well, to be quite modest, but I don't know, for want of a better word, that was quite politically tyrannical on the part of such a political actor that issued that. And when he saw that for somebody to beat his chest to say, well, I issue you a red card, and considering the fact that he didn't really have such political structures on ground that he could use to secure perhaps his second term bid, and sensing danger ahead, well, what he had to do was to see how he could again seek an alternative. Remember that some of these public office holders who are there by virtue of elections, they don't just decamp overnight. They would have held consultations with various political parties to see the one that will be very, very convenient and expedient for them. I remember the case of Ubadinaju of Anambra State. Ubadinaju, yes. He was, all other PDP governors were returned. But in his own case, they said no. And he said, if from the look of things, if there was going to be a situation where he would not be accepted by his own political party to contest election, then he will have to seek an alternative party. Yeah. And he went to Labour Party. Yeah. And of course he contested and then he lost eventually. So it is quite normal. That of Governor Autumn, I commend the comments of the APC leadership to say that it was somewhat surprising and shocking, And so that invariably means that that was the humble comment. Okay. And that kind of a comment was giving due regard to a personality of the governor. And that is not to say that the people eventually will not decide the votes. And what is happening now, to me, is a blessing to Nigerians in disguise, because it creates a kind of a political equilibrium where the voters themselves will look at these political parties. We also assess the personalities of the candidates they are featuring, and then weigh their options in actually going to the
let's just cap this up with maybe a last question on this spate of defections. There's a feeling that the party wasn't being properly managed in terms of really being responsive to the questions, to the issues, to the plight of many of its members and supporters. And then recently we are seeing another crisis brewing between the national chairman and the Minister of Labor and Employment over constitutions of both. I mean, that has been going on in recent times. Do we need this kind of heating up of the structures of the party at this particular time?
I don't think that leadership problem of APC was the issue at all. To me, far from it. The SY chairman, Governor Oyegun, His Excellency Governor Oyegun, the former governor of Edo State, he is a man that we can classify as a political tactician. He was able to at least do his best. But from day one, a new sheriff was in town, that is in the person of President Muhammadu Buhari, whose style of administration was completely different from all others that ruled these nations before, with the greatest respect to them, because the style of the president was not such that money could be put down and shared. That is the truth of the matter. And so, from the very beginning, he made his point known that governance is not about, looting the treasury. But National Assembly members would expect that when a budget is to be passed, then Ghana must go back, we go with it. They will expect that, by the time they also discuss with the MDAs and so on and so forth, they will be able to get whatever they want. But that was not really the case. And then they see it, government is getting to an end, they really nothing to show for it and all that. So most of these people became embittered. And let us not also forget that an average Nigerian politician who is in a ruling party believes that once he finds himself in a position, he should be able to make money for himself. And they also believe that even if they are not in a position, but they are in the ruling party, then they should be well taken care of. There's where in this country where people will sit down at home and, bootings of their being, leaders of party will be coming to them in millions. But all that is absent. And you don't expect the situation to remain the same. To me, it is the price President Buhari has to pay for trying to fight corruption headlong. That is the truth. And that is what is playing out. I mean, it could be a personal opinion, but it is quite candid. That is
so are you attributing these defections to that?
Of course. It is based on monetary consideration. It is based on monetary consideration. And for those also trying to seek, electoral offices thereafter, they are also looking at the political climate.
What is your take on public perception in terms of performance, in terms of the way things are now compared to what they used to be like, from the perspective of the ordinary man on the street? What's your rating? What's your assessment? I mean, I'm sure you do interact with people.
Very well.
Yes.
You see, unfortunately, most Nigerians appear to have an attitude that, this administration is not doing well. The reason being that the prices of items have gone up. If you go to the market, what you used to buy at the rate of 300 naira is now being sold at 500 naira, and so on and so forth. But we are not really considering the economic equations of what is happening now and what used to be. Nigeria was importing as low as a commodity like toothpick to this country.
But they're still importing them to
No, you see, whether they are importing them now or not, it is no longer legal. For example, look at Thailand. Thailand as a nation was making so much, building their economy based on what Nigeria was using to purchase rice that we produce locally. We produce in Ekboma, we produce in Abakaliki, we produce in Agbede, nutritious one for that matter.
Yes.
Now, there is now so much emphasis on local production of rice.
But those local production of rice are being affected with frequent attacks
listen,
by herdsmen.
No, well, that is
a
different issue.
How do we marry these two?
That is another issue entirely.
But that seems to be the core issue.
But before then, when federal government insisted that please let us rely on our locally produced rice and other local products of this nation, you know, the price of rice went up as much as 20,000, 21,000, and so on and so forth. But go to the market in recent time. At least the prices are coming down. I learned that even the price of Gary is getting reduced, not so reduced to the extent of being the previous price we used to know, but at least it is no longer going upward. The trend is that, you know, such local production is being encouraged, and we are getting the effects of so where you put in more energy, we are likely going to get results. Now back to your question of the herdsmen, farmers clashes and all of that. Yes, that problem exists.
Okay.
And it is up to the federal government to be on top of the situation. Because the kind of bloodletting that we have had in this country, I'm not sure that there is any African nation that has, not even the nations
in
that
being on top of this, yes. In being on top of this of the situation, the federal government has already proposed cattle ranching, cattle colony, and some pilot states have also been earmarked for that project. Almost about 179 billion naira has been proposed to drive that project, and that seems to be another very thorny issue that is attracting a lot of reactions, because people say, cattle business is a private business, so whoever wants to go into it, why would the federal government fund such a project if it's a private business? I don't know if you can marry all of this together, but it's not Tamiri.
You see, we have three categories of critics in this country.
Yes.
We have the critics who just criticize because they may be ignorant of the facts. You have the critics who, well, they portray, they are out to really pursue their own personal interest. They may be business mogul benefiting from the crisis and so on, and as such they criticize because it is likely going to affect their business. And then we have critics who criticize because such a policy will automatically not favor their own political climate. So those are the kind of critics we have in this country. But if we have to speak objectively, we should be able to know that the issue of, you know, cattle colony, cattle ranches and all of that is an issue we have to leave for government to handle in order to solve this problem once and for all. When you talk about cattle colony, I mean, the term colony, I don't agree with that term, because it has nothing to do with economic and political base. And so when you talk about colony, you are indirectly referring us to the era of imperialism. But when you are talking about cattle ranches, all over the world, we have cattle ranches, areas designated as cattle ranches. You have state, in Edo State, for example, you have forestry areas. For Christ's sake, those saying such forestry areas, you shouldn't have a policy like that there. Is it their personal property? Can't we design economic policies that will help to promote the agricultural output as well as ensuring that there is such a peaceful environment for investors? Is it that we just hate the faces of these herdsmen all of a sudden as if we don't consume beef anymore? So these are some of the issues.
Okay. We'll look at that issue on another day. But let me just conclude with the issue of the Executive Order number 6, which has also attracted a whole lot of controversies and reactions, if you like. What, in your opinion, is the crux of Executive Order number 6?
Well, like I said, most times I'm misunderstood over my opinion about the executive order.
But do you really care? They are your opinions.
You know, yes. But I keep saying this, that the president has the power to make executive order to regulate the activities of agencies under the executive arm of government. And there is no dispute about that. I also opined before now that such orders exist in other countries like United Kingdom. In fact, you have executive order of unexplained wealth. If you cannot explain the source of your wealth, the states, through their anti-graft agency, can seize same pending when you give the satisfactory explanation to it. But however, the executive order became an unfortunate delegated legislation that was, that was promulgated by the federal government. The reason being that we already had bills, laws that conveniently took care of the areas the executive order was made to take care of. The powers of forfeiture of assets emanating from corruption cases, the EFCC Act has it in section 28 of the Act that, yes, you should approach the court as an anti-graft agency that will grant you an interim order, thereafter a permanent forfeiture. So I think, to me, that ought to be enough. And so it will amount to immense surplusage and perhaps needless and, making such order to conflict with the existing legislation by virtue of that executive order. And then what makes that executive order, again, quite clumsy and not in tenets with the existing laws of the land, to my mind, was the fact that cases already in court, the order also went as far as capturing them. And that is likely going to create an inroad for a court in the exercise of its judicial discretion. So these are some of the issues. I would have expected, and I think Mr. President should still look at that, executive order that will regulate what the status of post-forfeited property would be. In other words, once property has been forfeited to government by virtue of the corruption charges and all of that, what happens thereafter? If you have looted, treasury of Ondo State government, for example, and you have built a house with it in Abuja, and it is traced to it, I mean, there should be an executive order that will say, all right, the fund goes back to Ondo State government. And not just by going back to Ondo State government, the purpose it ought to have served, that fund should also be used to take care of that purpose. And so on and so forth. You see, unfortunately, it appears that Mr. President is quite irritated by the level of corruption we have in our public places.
Do something to address it.
And so, when you scratch your body the way it scratches you, your intention is not to peel the body, but your intention is to scratch. But at the end of the day, you end up peeling your body. You can imagine a situation where currently you have 400 public officers being investigated over unexplained assets, estates. I'm not just talking about a house, one house belonging, estates in a nation where we need to resuscitate the economy. And so, you know, when you have such scenario, you cannot help but try to, you know, fight this corruption headlong. You also look at the issue of JAMB, the issue of custom. 7.8 billion naira was just remitted to federal government.
By JAMB?
By JAMB. That could not remit about 15 million naira for the past 6 years. So the money was going to where? You know, at times when we criticize this executive order, we criticize the executive order as if we are celebrating corruption. Let us look at the intention. A lot of people have said, oh, the executive order is made to castigate the opposition, is made to cripple the opposition. And the follow-up question I ask to that is that, will an executive order die with the administration? If Buhari leaves government today, will you vacate the executive order because he is no longer in government? Will that executive order not continue? So at the end of the day, we have to look at the problem, separate such problems from the personality.
But with the seeming flaws in the executive order, doesn't that suggest that perhaps those who advised the president to go ahead with it didn't think through it? Perhaps that the executive order is actually maybe some instruments put in place to really cage and target those who have been perceived as political enemies, as it's playing out already now in the political space.
When you have such comments, you know, you lose focus over the issue. You have just asked a question that, considering the untidy nature, so to say, of the executive order, what do we have to say about the aides of the president that may have advised him on the executive order? Yes, that means the president has to look at his cabinet very critically, so that those who are ill-advising him should be, you know, he needs to reshuffle such cabinet to ensure that such embarrassment is not brought to that exalted office. And so we must divulge that from negative intention. I am one person that believes that at every point in time, Mr. President means well for this nation. Because this is a man that has come out openly to say, if I leave government tomorrow, you can't jail me because I have not taken a kobo from the account of this of Nigeria illegally. With such comments coming from a man like that, with such level of transparency, if you blame him for every other thing, please give him credit for his credibility. That is my own take.
Well, what do you make of the timing of the order? I mean, 7 months to this election, maybe just a few months to the end of the present administration. What do you make of the timing of this executive order? Because that's also a major talking point.
You see, the government is a continuous business. If, to my mind, if the government is out to use the executive order to witch hunt opposition, there are existing legislations. The existing legislations are too many at the disposal of government to witch hunt anybody they want to witch hunt. But you are talking of an executive order which says, well, from you know, wealth from corruption can be confiscated and all of that. What stops the FCC from coming to Mr. A and saying, well, I suspect this property to be under to be a property you have illegally acquired based on corruption, and head to court to confiscate it, and so on. Because you have you have in the rules, you can bring an application for interim forfeiture before you bring an application for a permanent forfeiture. Those things are there, and in any event, when you have such scenario playing out, what does the government of the day stand to benefit? because they cannot be in government perpetually.
Yeah.
But whether they are in government perpetually or not, any law that is existing is capable of regulating the conduct of public officers. There is now a sanitization. The kind of reckless looting we are having in our public offices before now. I mean, right? People have confirmed the fact that they no longer exist. So we have to give credit to him for ensuring
why are you so sure they no longer exist?
When I say reckless,
Yes.
when I say reckless,
Whether
looting.
reckless or not reckless, looting is looting. Corruption is corruption.
Yes.
Stealing is stealing.
Very well.
We can't be so sure that it's not happening even under the president's nose.
Yes.
Yes, we can say that.
It could be, but not as alarming as it used to be. When you have this infighting, let me tell you, if such exists, you will not have people decamping unnecessarily, changing party from one party to the other, like a woman is changing the wrapper in her waist.
But you know, like some say, most of these corruption issues becomes more evident when the man in the saddle leaves office. That's usually what happens within the context of Nigeria. When the man is in the saddle, piloting the affairs of the country, things are, for example, the Dasuki Gate that people have talked about may not have been in the open, may never have been in the open if the former party was still in power. So if there is a flip today, now, I'm sure there will be more startling revelations.
Now,
more that you know, Mr. Tamil.
You see, well, until we get to that point.
Absolutely.
But before then, I have listened to the reasons these politicians are decamping from the National Assembly. I have not seen reasons traceable to corruption in government. I mean, I may be wrong, but if you have had, perhaps you can let me know. Okay. They have not said, oh, Mr. President, this party are so corrupt, we cannot be part of this corruption exercise, and so we are moving from this party, we are going to another party. So, but before now, we had gist of this particular political party in government. Look at the corruption there. You have such, what do you call it? Talks between the CBN governor and the finance minister and so on and so forth, all talking about corruption, even within the same government.
Oh, but there have been such allegations. You remember the grass-cutting allegations against the former SSG.
Yes.
You also remember the over $20 billion contract allegations involving the NNPC.
Yes.
All of these allegations. So some of these issues are still there, Pastor Tamir.
They are there.
They are still there.
But
somehow we're not able to really get into the heart of it because somebody's in the saddle.
No, let me tell you this. I cannot be an advocate of anybody in government. I say it the way it is.
Okay.
Yes. So you may have such allegations. Allegations are always there, and so it is up to the agencies concerned to do their investigations. When Dariye, the governor of the ex-wife governor of Plateau State, who was arrested since 2007 when he left office, he never knew that even as a senator he would be convicted, and his lordship that gave the judgment said, from what you did, you were richer than the state, Your Excellency. And the point I'm trying to make is, whoever is corrupt in government should not just feel that, oh, because my party is in government, everything is over. No, there is always a day of reckoning. Yeah. So I mean, we really have to wait until that day of reckoning, because some of these things, Mr. President cannot begin to harass everybody and order the arrest of everybody in town simply because he is fighting corruption. There may be some cases that he would say, please Do your thorough investigation.
Okay.
Go on. But what is necessary is for the EFCC and the ICPC and all other agencies that are out to, empowered to address the issue of corruption, have their level of independence, which I feel this government has guaranteed a little bit.
On the final note, this executive order, you think it will stand with all the bashing, attacks, criticisms, and reactions? I understand some people are already going to court to contest it.
Well, if the matter is in court, it will be lis pendens, it will be sub judice to speak on it at that level.
Yes.
But if you ask me my candid opinion, considering the inconsistencies, of the order with the existing legislation, and considering the fact that it is likely going to, affect the exercise of judicial discretion in respect of matters already pending before competent courts, I do not really see the executive order passing the tests of judicial pronouncements.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Barrister Obensaye Otamere, it's always a delight to have you here, sharing some thought with us on some of these very thorny and interesting issues. Many thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sonny.